So, while last time I might have said that we were going to do Kamen Rider Blade this week, I decided to do another volume of Mushoku Tensei, our Jobless Reincarnation, as you can tell from the title of the video. Mainly because I just recently finished this volume and I really want to get it out there before the next arc of the anime starts, at least at time of writing. By the time this is up, that arc would have been a few episodes in. Anyway, we are on Volume 5 of Jobless Reincarnation. And for those of you who don't remember from last time Rudy and company, basically it's him, Eris, Spurdia, and a new person who I won't name here because he's kind of really super important for this volume, but on a background level. Anyway, they had managed to finally get into human territory and were, not a quick shot, they were still pretty far off from home, but they were still closer to home than they have been in quite some time. However, there are some complications in their travel plans. For one thing, money, as human territories tend to be more expensive than demon territories, or beast territories. So Rudy decides to spend the next month in the first human settlement that they come to, a holy city named Millis, in order to basically work out some funds in order to finance their further travels along the rest of the way home. However, while in town, he comes across a familiar face, and it's Paul. After about a year in universe, Rudy finally sees his at least reincarnated dad once more. It doesn't really go well for either party. For his part of the conflict, Paul is a wreck of a man. Since the mountain disaster, which we as the audience, thanks to extra chapters, know, basically scattered almost everyone around basically everywhere into some really dangerous areas at points. With Paul only having one of his daughters, Norn, his daughter was Zenith, at his side by the time he was teleported away. So he basically didn't have Zenith, Lilia, or the other daughter whose name escapes me at the moment. And then later finding out that the city that Rudy was in was also affected probably didn't help his mental state. So yeah, he's basically become an emotional wreck since he can't find his family after a year since the disaster, and seeing how sometimes the other inhabitants are former inhabitants of the village ended up, and how tragic their stories can be, his outlooks aren't that hopeful. So we know what Rudy's been up to for the past year, so what has Paul been up to? Well, he's been searching everywhere and anywhere he possibly can for the sake of finding his lost family and the other people who were caught up in the mountain disaster. Originally starting with just himself with his daughter Norn at his side, he eventually manages to work up a actually functional crew of people to help him with this task, before moving around to the big city, and with the help of the clout of his in-laws, who don't like him but adore their granddaughter, they have decided to focus their efforts around that area for the sake of saving anyone who was trapped as a slave, because that also happened. Like, we hear a lot about that, and it's pretty bad, like child prostitute bad, and oh god. But yeah, the reunion between him and Rudy doesn't go well, with Rudy accusing Paul of philandering around, and Paul accusing Rudy of philandering around, with both of them being unable to see eye to eye because of, well, everything, as well as Rudy's own trauma, as well as Rudy not being the best at explaining what he's been up to, mainly because he was trying to be considerate to his father about all of the stuff that happened on the Demon Continent. So yeah. But yeah, the resulting reunion is not very great. And honestly, that's basically the volume. It's about the reunion of Paul and Rudy, and eventually them coming together yet again as a family, which, yeah, not a lot of action this time around, but this emotional through line is really well effective and showcasing the strength of the series and its character writing and its various cast of characters. And yeah, also it doesn't take them to the end of the book to reunite, because they do kind of get back together towards the middle, and it's just more father-son stuff from there on. Especially with Rudy trying to make amends with his younger sister, who hates him because she saw him beating up her dad. It's kind of funny. Like, it's really traumatic for Rudy, but then it kind of becomes a almost funny recurring joke. Yeah. that's most of the volume, as well as really learning about the true effects of the Mon disaster and basically getting a new purpose and trying to find his lost family, like Paul, but with hopefully a better outlook. And then we also have a bit of a kind of funny side chapter about Eris fulfilling a lifelong dream of goblin slaying, which would make a certain armored man very happy. It's kind of funny how it's framed because she basically overheard a bunch of the kids in her class talking about it when she went to school and has since then become enamored with the subject, but also knows that Rudy would find it kind of pointless and basically no one else will go with her, so she's like, I'm just going to solo this. But it ultimately ends up on a bit of a side quest, like an ongoing side quest with a guest character that's honestly fun and kind of funny and shows how skilled Eris has become in the meantime. It's also interesting because of how this ties into the active plot of the volume. It only really comes in towards the very end of said volume, and how it ties into future events, which I'm not discussing here at all. And then also, I just want to mention this real quick. Eris's reaction to Paul is hilarious because she basically goes on the attack mode because of how he hurt Rudy, which shows her basically her caring nature and her protectiveness of Rudy, at least this early on, which will become a very important plot point later on. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Varys is very protective of Rudy. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious and cute in its own way. Her being kind of tsundere about it too. Because as soon as she sees Rudy in his desperate state, her immediate mindset is, kill Paul! Like, without even a second's thought. Seriously, Regine has to hold her back a lot in this volume, and it's kind of hilarious. Because he has to hit her. And he's a skilled warrior, which also goes to show Eris's growth as a fighter so far in the series, which, again, is all nice, subtle storytelling about how strong this group has become. Yeah, outside of that, this is a quick, pretty emotional story of a family reuniting. Again, some Eris being tsundere and protective of Rudy, which is cute. And yeah, that's the volume. Now, let me pair out this episode by talking about the anime. At time of writing, we are on episode 10, with episode 11 being literally a day away. At time of recording, maybe only a few hours. And we have reached the Demon Continent, ending off Eris's introduction arc, which, that sounds kind of funny considering the fact that was like 5 episodes. And, well, how far is the anime? Well, it does obviously cut some things, rearrange some things, and obviously skip a few things here and there because, adaptation. But it's done a pretty good job, in all honesty. The anime is still beautifully animated, especially when it comes to its various Sakuga scenes. Bonus points go to a lot of Eris's and Ghislaine's training exercises, as well as the little dance that Eris and Rudy have in episode 9 or 8, I forget which one specifically. And yeah, considering the length of the series, I really do hope this one goes on to get at least a second core of another 25 episodes, which is likely considering some people consider it trash, but I do think it is fairly highly rated, at least on the Western side of things. I honestly wonder how it is in Japan, although I don't really have access to that knowledge. So yeah, overall, the anime continues to be pretty good. I look forward to watching it every week, and it's a pretty good adaptation of the story. Obviously, the original source is still the best way to get the full experience, although I've recently learned of some translations issues, which kind of irritates me in a way. I mean, I know if you don't like reading a lot, you can just watch the anime, which is also funny because if you watch the Japanese cut, you'll be reading anyway. And yeah, the good series continues to be good. Who would have guessed? Although considering some other things, it's kind of funny to say that. Anyway, yeah, I'll see you all next time, where we will actually, this time, for real, get into Kamen Rider Blade. Until next time, everybody.